Thank you, Mark and Tim. That was not only inspiring, I think a great example of the power of a brand and the value of a brand, both from a Invictus Games point of view and also from a JLR point of view. We are going to try to cut the session a little bit short, so we're just going to take some Q&As from the room. We were going to have a bit of a fireside chat, but we've also got some microphones around the room. So if you'd like to ask a question, please do so. If you wouldn't mind also just saying your name and actually where you're from, just to give everybody a bit of a perspective. Who would like to go first? No one? Knocked you out already.
There's an early finish.
I'll jump the gun then. So certainly from my perspective, Mark, you've been to all 4 games. How did you find the 4 games? How did they rate? Do they get better each time? Where do we sit?
I promise you I'm not playing to the audience, but on our measures, but also from seeing it firsthand, the Sydney games were by far the better ones. Because I was reflecting on this as to why, and I think it's because the culture here of just loving sport, the backdrop of Sydney and what that creates as a visual backdrop, but also the connection and passion that generally people have in Australia for their armed services, the Anzac spirit. I think those things together, plus the learnings of the previous games, a fantastic organising committee that had learnt from those previous 3 games, and the legacy of those, I think made Sydney something special. And not just against all the metrics, but when you talk to people about memories, I think it's definitely up there as the top one.
It's great. It's I know how hard it is to sell in a big idea. Was it a hard sell to send up the line back in?
What I didn't mention, and this is a key success factor, and it's an obvious thing to say, and it's well reported, but unless you get the backing from the top level, these things aren't sustainable. And that very first meeting we had with Prince Harry and his team that wanted to put this on, our CEO was in that meeting, and from that day to this day, he is probably the biggest advocate of what this means for us as a business. So, and without that champion from the very top level, these things are always more difficult. So we were very fortunate in that regard.
Any questions? Is that a hand? Yeah. Just one sec, there's a mic coming your way.
Sorry, Richard Basil-Jones from Ebiquity. I was interested in the stats you put up, Mark, and I think the interesting one was not so much the sales and business from a sales perspective, but more about the engagement level from your employees. And I guess I was interested to sort of learn a little bit more about what that means to the company, because that's clearly the value driver, not so much, well, I mean, you'd like the sales, but I'm sure there's an enormous amount of value from lower turnover, greater productivity, greater engagement from employees, etc.
Yeah, this wasn't about selling cars tomorrow, absolutely not. It was about multiple measures, and the internal staff engagement was something that we measured. So we have an annual pulse survey every year where we question our employees about on a number of different issues, but what's their level of engagement and pride of working in the business. And when you go through the results of that and the verbatims that come with it as well, we know that this is really working. And place your brand or place you're proud to work at is one of those key metrics that we look at. And undoubtedly this and other programs have really helped to reduce staff turnover in a very competitive job market, in some cases, to retain key staff that we need to. So it's all part of that value set and reasons as to why we do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Any others? Did I see one down here?
Well,
there you go.
Similar question, but about the actual public. Do you know the sentiment change amongst the general public?
So the survey results for Sydney aren't in yet, but when we've done it last time in Toronto, when we do sample surveying for those people in the city where the games are held, we got, for those that are aware of the games and our involvement as presenting partner, we had double-digit percentage increases in the attributes that we look at in terms of brand I would admire, brand I would consider purchasing. As best you can measure these things, there was definitely an uplift with those people that were aware of it. And I guess the challenge is, this is where Sydney did it so well, I think, is just getting enough people to be aware of what you're doing and making sure that it's on people's radar, particularly your target audience who you're trying to talk to.
And one for Tim. What happens post games, Tim? You've lived and dreamed this process for the last 2.5 years or so. What's the next?
It is a hard one to follow, I have to say. It was such a privilege to be a part of it, and I'm actually I was taken aback and delighted to be asked by Gus Warland, who is one of our ambassadors and I brought him on as an ambassador because of his wealth of knowledge in the mental health space. He's got a charity called Gotcha for Life, which supports and helps educate men mainly at the moment. They're pretty small, 18 months in, as to the value of meaningful conversations. So it's trying to prevent the incidences of male suicide. And he's asked me to be CEO of that organisation, which is brilliant kind of natural-ish lead on from the games, but something I'm passionate about, and I think it's a cause that needs a huge amount of support at the moment, particularly in this country, and one that has got a lot of potential growth. Gotcha for Life, certainly with increased corporate and government backing that we'll be looking for.
Well done. What a great cause. If there's no more questions, I might... one final one. Miss Felicity Winchester. How nice to see you.
Felicity Winchester from Goodman Fielder. I have less of a question and more of a comment. So I bought tickets for my family to go and see Invictus this year, probably not really knowing what to expect. A couple of families went out. And marketing aside, the marketing was genius, brand integration, amazing. But the event itself was one of the most probably extraordinary things. I get really emotional talking about it. That my family has ever done. So I would strongly encourage anybody who gets the opportunity to go. It's the most powerful event that you can go to. It raises questions, it changes conversations, it changes mindsets, certainly amongst even people that we went with. So kids who talk about, if he can do it, I can do it. You had a lot of access to, you met athletes on the bus, people who were the American rower who, had lost his legs. That was amazing, just to talk to. And I would really strongly, really encourage people to give it a shot. If ever you are in the city where it's happening, I really encourage you to go. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I think on that point it's pretty hard to top. So I'd like to very much thank Mark and Tim for quite an inspiring session. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.